Okay, so we've done a preliminary check. I'm going to walk you around exactly what it is that I'm looking for. The first thing we want to check is we want to check the brake fluid. When you take the cap off, just want to kind of stick your finger in there and see what it looks like. This is sort of a brown color. It's not even clear. The inside of the reservoir actually looks black. So first thing, one of the things on the list is going to be a complete brake fluid flush. Brake fluid is what's called hydroscopic. That means that it holds moisture from the air. Over time, you don't have so much hydraulic fluid as you do a mix of water and hydraulic fluid. That's where your squishy brake pedals come from. Although the brakes work, and the previous owner did put a new set of brakes on, and he put a half shaft on the passenger side of the vehicle, the fluid definitely needs to be changed. When you're looking to see what kind of maintenance done on a vehicle, one of the best indicators is the actual air filter. Now in our case we got lucky, although it's completely clogged, can barely see through it. It is a K&N filter. So somebody did take the time to put a K&N filter in this. We're going to clean it, re-oil it, put it back in service. At some point this will get a cold air kit. Regarding the exhaust issue, you know, I had looked up when I first bought it to see just in case it needed a manifold. Well, you can buy headers for this for 170 bucks. So guess what this is going to end up with? Nice set of stainless headers. And then we'll probably do a MagnaFlow or, I don't know, some kind of exhaust system on it. Serpentine belt has been changed. It's in pretty good shape. There's no cracking. Everything looks great on it. The cooling system is low and the fluid doesn't look good, so it's going to get a cooling system service. Change the thermostat, flush out the radiator, flush out the motor, things like that. These are all things you want to do to promote the longevity of a vehicle, especially a vehicle like this with higher mileage. As I said, it's got 200,000 miles on it. Now, that doesn't mean that it's junk. You know, these motors can go a very long time as long as they're properly maintained. There was an oil change done on this, so you know the oil looks pretty good. When we look at the trans fluid, is looking a little on the brown side, so you know, we'll be throwing the trans kit at this, you know, meaning a filter and a gasket. We're not actually going to put a shift kit in it or anything. The air conditioning doesn't work. Gotta see what's going on with that. Most likely it's a compressor. You know, that happens on these GM vehicles quite often. But it does run very good, very solid, very quiet. No noises out of the motor, no smoke out of the tailpipe. Looking at the interior, it's not terrible. We have some pieces to replace on the center console there. The cover for the center console, the armrest, is actually cracked. So we'll see what we can do about finding a new one for that. It does have an aftermarket stereo system in it. However, it's one of those where you need a security code when the battery is disconnected and nobody has the code. There is a big box in the back with two 12-inch subwoofers, 2 big amps, and a huge capacitor. So it ought to make some noise once we get that fired up. But for 800 bucks, you know, most of it's here. The biggest issue I see with the interior is that the arm for the recline on the passenger side seat is missing. So we're gonna have to get that changed out. Also, the power mirror switch is no good. Now on the outside, it's not bad. It's a little checking going on with the paint, but there's no rust on either side of the truck. The front tires are ready to be replaced. It's got a brand new set of tires on the back. So for now, I'll probably just throw a set of tires on the front until we do the lift kit. And then take it from there. The steering checks out fine. I've already test driven it. No noises, no clunks or thuds or anything like that. Shocks probably need to be replaced. But like I said, for $800, something that runs and drives under its own power, you can't go wrong. So at this point, like I said, we're just going to go through and we're going to start bulletproofing things. Okay, so when I bought this, one of the first things that I noticed was this overwhelming oil burning smell. And it does leak quite a bit of oil. As it turns out, it's the valve cover gaskets. So I'm going to walk you through how to do the valve cover gaskets on a 4.3 GM V6. First order of business is going to be on the air cleaner housing itself. So you're going to have 4 screws. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so you're going to take those out, you're going to pull this up. You're going to have 2 connectors here. One is going to be for your air intake temperature, the other one's going to be for your mass airflow. You're going to take those connectors off. Here and here. Now, once you got those done, back here there's a wing nut. You're going to pull that. You're also going to have this tube here for the PCV valve. You're also going to have this wire harness here that you can probably just push right through like that. Lift, pull towards the front of the vehicle, and then the whole air cleaner assembly comes out of the way. Now you can start digging your way into this. While we're in here, we're going to take a look at the throttle body. It looks pretty clean, actually. Looks like somebody serviced that. Way down here is the valve cover. Now to get to that, we got to lose the upper radiator hose here. And you can see some swelling right here. So, like I said, we got to do a cooling system service anyway. So I'll probably end up replacing those hoses. We also have the AC compressor, which sits right on top of the valve cover here. So that's 4 bolts. That's going to come out of the way. Move the wiring around, move some tubes around. Now you're also going to have to pull the PCV valve out of the way, which is right in here in this hole. You're going to have to disconnect the back of the AC compressor right here. And then after that, go ahead and pull off the upper radiator hose. Make sure you drain your coolant first. This pretty much has no coolant in it, so there shouldn't be anything in there. It has a spring clamp on it. And there's a special tool for that. If you don't have the special tool, a pair of channel locks works just fine. Okay, now one of the other things you're going to have to do is take off this bracket, which is for your throttle cables. What I like to do is I like to take the nuts or bolts out of wherever they have to come from. Move what you need out of the way. And then replace the fastener wherever it is that it goes. That way nothing gets lost. Because in this shop, things have a way of walking away. Okay, so at this point, you're going to have to take off the AC compressor. In order to do that, you got to remove the serpentine belt. Now, on some vehicles, there'll be an actual nut. On some vehicles, there'll be a hole where you would put the end of a socket. So in the case of our Blazer here, right here, there is a hole that takes a 3/8 drive ratchet. I do not have a 3/8 drive breaker bar. So, what are you going to need to do this? You're going to need a fan clutch toolkit. Now, this particular kit I got from my local auto parts store. I do a lot of work on cars, obviously, so I've had to make some investments in tools. Now, this is going to have a 3/8 drive, a 1/2 inch drive, an adapter, sockets, and then crow's feet, depending on the kind of vehicle you're working on. In our case, we need this one here with the 3/8 drive. And it's very simple. So now to remove the serpentine belt is very easy. You could use a 3/8 breaker bar, a special fan clutch tool, or fan tool, or serpentine belt tool rather, like I showed you, or in my case a ratchet works. So what you're going to do is push down and take the tension off the belt, and then slide the belt out from underneath the idler pulley. Slowly let this come up. I'm warning you now, this thing's under a lot of tension. If you're not paying attention to it, it will bite you and break your hand or a finger or something like that. With this valve cover gasket on the driver's side of the 4.3, there's going to be 3 bolts. One is going to be way at the bottom of the bracket for the AC compressor, in between the power steering pump pulley and the water pump pulley, right underneath there where my finger is. I can't get a better shot of it. You're also going to have a nut towards the top. Okay. See where that stud is? Right here. There's a nut that goes there. And then right here where my finger is, there's a nut. I'm sorry, there's a bolt. And then right here is another bolt. Once you take those out, then you can move the AC compressor forward. Okay, so now once you get your AC compressor out of the way and take out the 3 bolts, pull out the valve cover, take a couple of minutes, clean this thing up before you put it back in. The last thing you want is all of this garbage going back into the motor. And then I'll get into showing you something with the gasket installation. Okay, now once you get this thing cleaned up, you're going to have to change out these 3 grommets here where the bolts go through. It's very, very simple. Take a screwdriver, pry up. These come right out, as long as you're not trying to hold the camera and do this at the same time. Now, as far as installing the 3 new grommets, which are here, I just like to use a little WD-40 or any kind of very light lubricant. So you can take a new grommet, just snap it right into place. Okay, so this part here is to help save making a rookie mistake like I did. You have your new valve cover, gasket, and if you put it up against your old gasket, it's going to be long. So after doing some searching around, here's the key. You start at a corner. When you look at this, you'll see one side has a very distinct edge that will go inside the valve cover. So, you start at the corner and sort of push back to where you already have it in and press it into the groove all the way around. If you don't do this and try to stretch it as you go, the valve cover gasket is going to grow and it's going to be too long by the time you get to the end, or to the next turn, I should say. Just going to keep on pushing back towards where you already have the gasket installed into the groove. If you just try to put your finger on and run it that way, if you look on this end, you can see it's already too long. So don't make the same mistake I did. Velcro says it's designed to be installed this way because it needs a little compression. Velcro made the gasket. I've been using Velcro gaskets for years. If they say that's right, then I gotta believe that it is right. Let's see here, I kind of screwed this up. I'll get this straight. Okay, so now if you did everything right, your gasket will be in, and it's going to be laying nice and flat all the way around. Okay, so remember, you start the corner, push the gasket back, and work your way around. You'll be fine, the gaskets aren't too long. Okay, so on the driver's side of the vehicle, once you get that valve cover wrestled back into place, assembly is reversal of disassembly. You're going to do your AC compressor bracket, your AC compressor, air intake, electrical connections, PCV, hose, and you're done on that side. Now the driver's side, the passenger side, is not as bad. You're going to be removing your coil bracket. You're going to be removing the charge wire from the alternator back here. You have two heater hoses. You have one here that goes to the front of the motor, and you have one down here that goes to the intake manifold. And you're going to have a wire harness along the bottom down here. It's just all simple nuts and bolts, 10 millimeter, 13 millimeter spring clamps for the hoses, and then go ahead and wrestle out that valve cover gasket, that valve cover. Well, I promised to show the good and the bad of everything that goes on here. And the bad of this project of doing the valve cover gaskets is that right here, this is the fuel pressure regulator, and I managed to snap the end off of it because, you know, I'm a genius. So I gotta get a few parts for it anyway. Might as well get a fuel pressure regulator while I'm at it. So we're gonna throw a tune-up at this. Tune-up's going to consist of E3 spark plugs, new plug wires, cap rotor, fuel filter, and a few other things. We're going to make this mom's mall crawler. Like I said, we're going to do a small lift kit on it. We're going to get the radio fixed in it. We're going to make this good for her and get her out driving it this week. So stay tuned and follow along the progress of this little mini project we have going on. We're going to have some other projects in and out, and then we're going to get back on the Jimmy. Until then, God bless. Peace.